Welcome everybody to our next talk by Marco Consolaro, Soulful, Socio-Technical Architecture. Please welcome the speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank to the organizer to inviting me to this beloved conference. I am Marco Consolaro, a co-author of Agile Technical Practices Distilled, which I wrote with Pedro Santos and Alessandro Di Gioia. And I'm also co-founder of Alcor Academy, together with Alessandro Di Gioia, where we do professional training for software developer teams. We take teams that are not so skilled in test-driven development, software craftsmanship, DDD, and we take them step by step to be very proficient about those topics. The idea of this talk came when I saw a slide from Gallup, stats from Gallup, about employees' engagement on the industry. That's not about IT, it's about whole industries. And the first time I saw this, I was shocked. Because I tend to be engaged. The moment I am not engaged, I change job. But apparently, that's not the case. Most of people in all industries are actually disengaged or toxic. And that's, for me, it's a shock, it's a problem. It's the reason why it's so difficult. So when we started Alcor Academy, we did a survey with industry leaders to position ourselves and understand what are the problems for our industry, to see if we were like, well, developers might be an exception to that. And so the problems we found is that development teams are not aligned with business. Teams are entangled with dependency, and so they have low productivity. There is unclear top-down decisions which trigger lack of trust. So it's really hard to attract and retain talents. And then, unfortunately, we discovered that also in our industry, developers are disengaged. This is a ill picture of our industry, because I agree with Patrick Lencioni when he says that a healthy organization is one that has less politics and confusion, higher morale and productivity, lower unwanted turnover, and lower recruiting costs than an unhealthy one. That's why we need to create soulful socio-technical architectures. And in this presentation, I will try to explain what I mean with this. So let's start first from the most difficult one, maybe the most misunderstood, which is socio-technical. And in order to understand this, we need to go underground. I need to tell you a story about the mining industry, because the first time that this word came to light was in 1951 in a paper by Eric Trist and Ken Bamford, which was titled something strange, but I will explain later. It's like some social and psychological consequences of the long wall method of coal getting. And the subtitle is still cryptic, an examination of the psychological situation and defenses of a work group in relation to the social structure and technological content of the work system. So they had to study problems in the coal mining industry. In order to understand what happened, we need to go a little bit back in time. And we go in the 40s, just after the Second World War in the UK, where they did the coal mining reform. So what happened? Let's say that before the reform, these are pictures I dig on the internet of those times, right? This is 1931. They used to work a little bit like this, right? They use horses, they have some rudimental tools to do their job. They dig the coal with some big drills like this. They took it out in this way. And they had a very particular way to organize themselves. They were organizing small teams, 20 people, with internal supervision and self-organization. Individual workers developed multiple skills over time. And salary and bonuses were negotiated by each group. Essentially, this group became a sort of little communities where not only the worker went to work together, but their family used to live together and support each other in time of difficulty. If somebody was sick, the other had to work for him, and it created a very deep relationship inside the community, outside just the work, even in the life itself. After the reform, right, the reform was done by the UK government, right? They needed more coal, so they decided to nationalize all the coal mining. They bought them all, and then with the excuse to introduce new, great technology, they revolutionized everything, right? So after the reform, they were digging coal with these kind of machineries. That's why it's called long wall, because it was a long machine that was taking coal out in a bigger scale. They had big wagons inside the underground, and they started to use these trains like the normal one. The result was the creation of this big industrial complex to try to dig out more coal. But they changed also the way that the worker organized themselves to work underground. They were organized on bigger teams, 40, 50 people with 3-shift schedule, right? Before there was just one shift. They went to work in the morning, they stayed there 8 hours, at the evening, they came out. Instead, they were like, no, why like that? Let's do 3 shifts so we can triple the production, right? But the workers were segregated and paid by skill. So there was no self-organization anymore. There was like, okay, we need these jobs. Everyone apply for one job, and that was it. You will do that job for all your life. And another thing they introduced, they made the management directly involved in coordination and control. So imagine these managers with the suit, right? They have never seen a mine before, going underground in the dark, telling the miners what to do, to control them. What can possibly go wrong? What do you think? Did it work? Expected outcome? Well, get the most out of new technology, right? We keep the machine running 24 hours a day. We at least triple the production, if not more. Well, things didn't really go like that. Real outcome? Disappointing productivity. They didn't even double it. Problems with management, right? Obviously. So that triggered absenteeism and turnover. And for the first time in the mining industry, strikes. Right? Not very good. This is actually a picture of a strike of that time. So after this failure, Trist and Mumford were tasked to study the situation and understand why they had all those problems despite this improvement. So let's read a little bit the conclusion of that paper. It's quite obscure in many places, but the conclusion have a few nice paragraphs. So Trist say this faced with low productivity despite improved equipment and with drifts from the pits despite both higher wages and better amenities, like the miner apparently didn't care about ping pong tables. those in authority have increased their interests in the organizational innovation. Qualitative change will have to be affected, say trust, so that a social as well as a technological whole can come into existence. If attention is paid to the social as well as the technical system, then a choice can be made that leads to the optimum performance at the system as a whole, even if that requires less than the optimum state for the separate dimensions. And this is very relevant because it's 30 years before than the theory of constraints, where this thing has been explained in detail. Essentially, what trees discover is that if we put in the axis the pressure on the social system and the pressure on the technical systems, the optimal performance of the system is somewhere in between. That means that there is a maximum valuable pressure point. In a complex socio-technical system, local optima make things worse. That means that if your manager is happy because everybody is always working and never talk to each other, well done, you are making things worse. So we need some architecture, some socio-technical architecture, but also architecture is a contentious word. We don't really know anymore what it means, right? So I went to the Cambridge Dictionary and I look up the formal definitions and I find two definitions that are interesting, like the design and structure of a computer system, right, the classic idea. But the other one is the structure of an organization which influences the relationship between the parts and the employees. So if we remember the Conway's law, actually Conway say that these two definitions are actually not that far away. The definition number 2 strongly influence the definition number 1, right? So let's go from where our code runs through the core of our code, and let's see how we can architect things in our organization from there to the wide organization, right? So in a well-known system, we will have a modular, loosely coupled architecture, something like this. You can call it port and adapter, you can call it hexagonal architecture, you can call it clean architecture, onion architecture, you can call it many things, but the basic ideas are the same. It's modular and loosely coupled. We have a core of the application where we are in control, where we have our business rules, and we can test it and control it 100%. Make sure that what we do for our business is exactly what we want. And then we have the infrastructure layer, where we connect this core to the external world. This is where we proxy data in and out, and that's where we can plug in different things in order to control that our system work in the right way. Right? But this is just our code. Code is not done for its own sake. Right? We like to code. Some of us think that that is the goal, but our code is a liability. We don't code for fun. We code because we need to support activities in our business. So our code needs to interact with our part, with other part of the business, or with the people that use it. And I agree with Alan Kay when he says that the key making great and growable systems is much more to design how its module communicate, rather than what their internal properties and behavior should be. So our code is running inside bounded context of communication. And if we need to design how our model communicate on a higher level of abstraction, on an organizational level, we need to design the way the context interact with each other. And here there's two main ways that they can interact. That's what we need to design very carefully, right? There's synchronous communication and asynchronous communication. Are we designing it? Is there a master plan about how they communicate, or is it accidental? This is a very important part for Alan Kay is more important than how we actually design our code inside the bounded context. And even here, like coupling and cohesion inside our classes, bounded contexts are a little bit the model of the organization, but the same principle is valid. We need a lot of communication inside the context, in the people involved to understand the activity and how to support it best with our software. And we need to design really carefully, minimizing the coupling between the contexts. Same principle, right? And here also, Akov and Emery are in agreement, right? To manage a system effectively, you may focus on the interaction of the parts rather than their behavior taken separately. So how do the bounded context interact? Well, we have in our organization something that is called value stream. It's an idea coming from Lean, right? But I don't go very deep in this. It's important to understand this idea, right? We have several activities. Let's make an example: an e-commerce company, right? Somebody that gets items. Need to describe these items, then they need to take picture of the items, then these information needs to go in the website. The website has to have a nice interface for the public to browse the catalog, to read the information, and then there's a payment system where the people can choose what they want to buy, they pay, and then once they pay, we need a logistic activity where the logistic people see the order, see the address, ship the things to the customer. And then we need a customer service because maybe something go wrong. We need to support the customer. All these are activities of our value stream. And that's where our bounded context goes in play, right? The activities that needs technical support, automation, software has their own context where people can write the best software in order to support the activity. Every activity adds value in this process. So we should collaborate daily with business folks. Right? Inside our context, there are business people that do a real job. And our role as developers, technical team, should be write the best software to support their activity. Software is just a form of automation so that people stop doing repetitive tasks and focus on higher tasks to manage their activity in the most effective way. These people need to work together. How many of you work together daily with the business people? Right? This was the fourth agile principle, almost never seen in practice. Right? But it's not just this, it's working together, yes, but we need also a well-defined purpose. Here, team topology explains many things really well about collaboration. There are some teams, the stream-aligned team are the team directly involved with the value stream, right? But then when the company grows, there's other kind of team that can be in place. There might be an enabling team of people very experienced that can help the other team to organize things in the best way. And then there might be a complicated subdomain when there is something very complicated that needs a team by itself in order to take care of that complexity. And then a platform team when we can modularize many things and don't get the people working on the stream to have to reinvent the wheel all the time. But then we need also to collaborate in a well-designed way, right? Collaboration is not just something that you do. There's different ways we can do it. Do we design the way teams collaborate, or is it accidental? 99% of the place I worked, well, it was accidental. Just do it together, right? That's, to me, part of architecture. Even team size. Team size is another thing that we should design. The smaller the team, the greatest the relationship, the simpler the communication, the harder it is to misunderstand each other. So we need to try to keep our team small. And at the end, optimizing for flow, right? The value stream introduced this idea of flow, right? So in team topology, there are three very nice suggestions about this. One is avoid handovers. By using autonomous cross-functional teams equipped with all the skills necessary to do the job. Like you make it, you run it. No handover. A team needs to be able to do everything from development to support the software in production. Also here, there's no DevOps developer. DevOps is a skill inside the team. There's no architect. Architecture is a skill inside the team. The hierarchy must be flat. So keep teams stable, but evolve them by emerging needs, right? And then focus on the quality of collaboration. Trust, awareness, and learning. Imagine a network of autonomous multi-skilled teams united by purpose and values. How far can we go? Unfortunately, the harsh reality is very different. A rigid hierarchy of power united only by command and control. In these environments, it's really easy to feel like a number, like a replaceable cog. And this structure, it's to me, is the corporate pyramid, a Ponzi scheme of power that reminds me a different pyramid from my school books. The feudal pyramid, an authoritarian model which is destroying the soul of our workers. I agree with Maria Montessori when she said that joy, feeling one's own value, being appreciated and loved by others, feeling useful and capable are all factors of enormous value for the human soul. Or let's go back to Democritus a few years before. Happiness resides not in possessions and not in gold. Happiness dwells in the soul. That's why we need soulful socio-technical architecture. But before I go to soulful, let's go back to the minor. So did trust succeed in improve the situation? Well, they made a few experiments with a couple of minds, and they introduced a different way to work, right? And so, Trace say, we discovered that what was hard impossible was in effect very possible, right? An environment where the social way to work was kept as before, and get this small team to work with the new technology, right? So they invented the composite log wall. So keeping the technology, but reintroduce the old way to work. So they reintroduced autonomous, multi-skilled work groups. Payment on a group bonus system. They removed the segregations between the shifts, right? So they started to do proper handover. And finally, the supervision was became internal again by leaders elected by the workers. So essentially, they kicked the managers out of the pit. Outcome? Absenteeism cut in half. Decreased incident and sickness. No more turnover. Reduced the overall costs. Productivity plus 25%. The thing is, I agree with John Shannon when he says that the problem with command and control is control. rather than command. Why? Well, it's easy to understand. If you really trust someone, would you control him? If you control someone, you are just saying to him, I do not trust you. Yet, trust lies at the heart of a functioning, cohesive team. Without it, teamwork is almost impossible, said practically shown. I will say, without trust, the soul of your team is doomed. So, how can we make Soulful? Number one, reject command and control and bureaucracy, giving budget and decision power to the teams. And this is about autonomy, Drive from Daniel Pink, right? Autonomy is one of the pillars. Even accelerate agrees, right? Approval by a manager doesn't work to increase stability. It works really well to slow things down. Or let's listen to Russell Echo. The effectiveness of authority decreases as the educational level of subordinate increases. When the educational level of subordinates is higher than that of their bosses, very, very relevant in our industry, it becomes negative. Teams work despite authority. Number two, second suggestion, replace personal bonuses and performance review with team and organizational ones. This is about purpose. Why? Well, if 90% of the workers' performance is governed by the system, as Edward Deming said, and I strongly agree, what sense does it make to have ad hominem personal review and bonuses? It just creates competition, where instead we should have collaboration. Finally, number three, give special attention and time to activities that foster workers' relationships around their skills. And this is about mastery. The activities you can do here are many. What's the problem here? There is a very big problem. You can't force people to learn, right? But what you can do, you can create environments where learning is likely to happen. The thing is that people, like Bob Marshall said, are not our greatest assets. It's the relationship between people that are our greatest asset. And this is what we should strive to create in our environments. And it needs to be architected. And to me, the most effective way to create great relationships is to get people to learn together. Nothing fosters relationships like learning together. So socio-technical system design provides a new worldview of what constitutes quality of working life and humanism at work. It facilitates organizational innovation by recommending the removal of many elite groups and substituting flat hierarchies, multi-skilling, and group decision-taking. It wants to replace tight controls, bureaucracy, and stress with an organization and technologies that enhances human freedom, democracy, and creativity. Because when one socio-technical system has a soul, magic will happen. What is this? Is it a church? This is not a church. This is a salt mine. This is Wielce salt mine near Krakow in Poland. Everything you see there has been sculpted by the miners. In their spare time, they started to create arts down the mine. This mine has been working for more than a century. So imagine these people down there with this very harsh environment. Imagine these people were working in the dark for 8 hours per day, very deep underground. They many times have to eat there, wait there, and do everything in there. So they had time to do things, right? And so imagine somebody starting to sculpt something, somebody else saw it and started to do it. And then they use this trick to get the younger people to learn how to use the tools in a safe environment, try to do some art, then the people start to get better and better, and then they start to do bigger things, and they ended up with something that with years became like a museum. Everything here is sculpted, the staircase, the tiles, it's all sculpted by the miners. And there are, this place is actually now included in the UNESCO World Heritage List as an outstanding testimony about the socio-technical system involved in the underground mining. It's not the manager that they told to do this. It was their initiative, right? There's a lot of piece of art there. There's even the representation of the Last Supper of Leonardo da Vinci. So now imagine a McKinsey consultant going there for the first time, arrive there, and what would he say? Wow, how much spare time has people down here to do this stuff? Right? But this was one of the most productive mines in Europe. Don't be fooled by this. This mine was just left alone, no reform, nothing. They just left them self-organized. It was one of the most productive mines. And they still have the time to do this, right? Just to prove what Trist discovered in the UK. So I would propose this. The soul of the organization is the degree to which it provides the will and abilities to promote the good and the wisdom in all its members and relationships. I close with Russell Ackoff, which said science pursues data, information, knowledge, and understanding. What is truth? But humanity pursues wisdom. What is right? Once upon a time, Fred Esberg said, if you want someone to do a good job, give them a good job to do. I'm not sure the miner will agree. I think it's time to rephrase it. If you want someone to do a good job, build a soulful, socio-technical architect. Thank you.